Hello and welcome back to the Book Marketing Tips and Author Success Podcast. This is Penny Sansevieri.
And Amy Cornell.
And second show of the new year. We're super excited. We hope that you had a really good holiday season. If you're just now checking us out, you just kind of surfaced from all the holiday hubbub. We get it. But we're really glad you're here. I hope you all I hope your new year is starting off spectacularly. We have a whole series of shows. If you didn't check out the December 26th episode, we have a whole bunch of shows that we have outlined and not really changed up the podcast other than check out that episode. Definitely, it explains it better than I am articulating right now. But we really wanted to make each month a pathway for you, right? So we hope that you're going to be enjoying, through January. We'd love to get your show feedback. Speaking of which, show ideas, show feedback. Just want to check in with Amy and Penny. Text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. We get so many responses from listeners. We love being able to communicate with you directly. So today this is really interesting. Why your book isn't selling, the hidden positioning issues that no one talks about. Although I would like to say that we talk about it on the show quite often. So the truth is that we're digging into an uncomfortable, but on the upside, liberating truth. Many books underperform because they're positioned incorrectly, not because the author did anything wrong or because, but because a lot of times it's really hard to see your book objectively. And marketing, and it's funny because when we were in the green room, Amy and I were talking about this. We actually had this conversation just last week. Marketing can only amplify what's already there. So if the positioning is off, no amount of marketing or ads or whatever can fix that, right? We just had this conversation last week, I think.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Marketing can't fix what's wrong with your product positioning and how it's being perceived by your market. That's not what it does. Yep.
Right. Exactly. So the positioning piece of it is how the reader immediately understands what the book is, what it's for, what it's going to do for them, why it matters. We talked about this in the last episode, right? About how you have to be really crystal clear on what your book is and what it isn't. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do not leave it up to the reader to figure out what your book is, because if you do that, you're literally you're not going to sell books. Full stop. Right. And it's a split second decision. And Amy, do you want to just talk us through just the quick what positioning breaks down?
Yeah, I mean it's your first impression. So this is your title, subtitle, your cover. This is your category, because believe it or not, while you might not think a lot of readers, shoppers notice that right away, they will 100% notice if it doesn't make sense. So it seems like a very small detail on the retail page, but if they think your book is one thing, but then they see that little detail above the cover, where it says exactly where your category, where it's placed, they're going to go, wait, what? So it is important. Book description. Absolutely. We cover this in a lot of other shows, but scanning, making your book description scannable. And that is there is such an art to using the right kind of language that makes scanning exciting. It's really hard to do, but it makes such a big difference. Your keywords, of course, and then your author brand signals.
Right. Exactly. So let's talk about the first one. All right. So failure number one, the book is in the wrong category or subgenre. And man, I'll tell you something, of all of the ones that we're talking, I know we see a lot of different things, but man, we see this a lot, right? So Amazon's algorithm does not evaluate books holistically. It evaluates a pattern match, right? So if your book behaves differently than other books in its category, so the conversion rate, read through, reviews, right, etc., the Amazon algorithm basically deprioritizes it. And the thing about categories is that categories, I know a lot of times feel like they are identity statements, right? They are not. So I know that you want to be, for example, the number one best-selling book in genre romance or whatever. But maybe your book doesn't really belong there. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a conversation that you have to have with a marketing person, because we have this conversation a lot. Categories are traffic lanes. They are not identity statements. And if you, it's kind of like when you're any of you have used Waze. I mean, certainly we all have like direction things on our phones now. If you don't follow the traffic guidelines and you wind up in the wrong lane, you're going to wind up in the wrong everywhere, right?
City.
The wrong city. I mean, truly, especially like if you're driving through some like metropolis like Los Angeles or something, God forbid, you're going to wind up in like, I don't know, at the beach when you want to be at the desert or something.
Right.
So if you choose the wrong lane, you're still going to get impressions, but they're going to be from readers who are essentially, but primed to dislike the book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So category misalignment creates a negative feedback loop.
Right.
Okay. The wrong readers buy. So here's your feedback loop, right? The wrong readers buy, their expectations aren't met. The reviews are skewed towards disappointment, right? The reviews are consistently like disappointed. Your conversion rate drops and your visibility throttles.
Gosh, that was all heavy.
I'm sorry. I know that was really heavy. Happy New Year, everybody.
No, but it's so true, though. It is so true.
It's so true. Yeah.
And it's such and I love this part of your notes too, Penny. Sorry, I'm totally jumping in because it's like I'm chomping at the bit on how emotional this is for authors a lot of times when they're choosing
emotional.
Stories.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I've been grateful that Amazon refuses to add upmarket fiction as a category because
Thank you.
Everybody would want to be in there because it sounds very fancy but don't categorize your book based on what you like, these weird hopes and dreams you have for the people that are reading it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you're not going to categorize it correctly if you're like, I want these people to love my book. It's like, yeah, but is that the book that you wrote? Because if that's not the book you wrote, then nothing's going to work. Right.
Exactly. And what's funny is I see this a lot in mystery. Now, we do see it granted, we see it in every genre. Like, I get it. We see it a lot in memoir too, where memoir gets misaligned, which you'd think like memoir is just memoir, but that's not always the case. Go back to some of our memoir shows, and we've hammered that one home too. But we see this a lot with mystery is a great example. It's very top of mind. I talked to somebody last week. My book is a cozy. Are you sure? Like, are you sure it's a cozy mystery? Because, cozy mystery, there's this particular, like, there's no body, like, you can't, like, the murder happens off camera. That's the first thing. Oh, well, the murder happened. Everybody can see the dead guy. No, then that's not a cozy mystery. But this happens a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And this is where, like, where I like to say the categories are not identity statements. You gotta write. You gotta know who your market is. I'm sorry. Now I'm like, I know you can't see this, but I'm literally like waving my arms. I'm like, I'm so because Amazon doesn't punish bad books. I mean, does.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Amazon's not going to slap you on the wrist. It's literally just going to sideline it and deprioritize it and not show it. And your ads are going to cost money. So I guess Amazon does publish bad. I guess Amazon does punish bad. I mean, you would think like we've seen some, you and I have, when we've done Amazon optimizations or whatever, where sometimes we'll send each other links. We're just like, how did this book ever get published? Not any book that we worked with. Let's just be clear. But in our travels on Amazon where we've seen books, we're just like, how in the world did this book get published? So Amazon will pretty much let any book into their ecosystem, but they will deprioritize you. They will shift the algorithm to somebody else. They will make your ads cost $35 a click because your category is wrong and your reviews are bad and there's no reader alignment.
Right. Amazon wants to sell your book as bad as you want to sell your book, but you have to make it easy for them to do that.
Thank you. Yes, that's I love that talking point. Let's put that on a t-shirt. That's awesome. All right. Failure number 2.
T-shirts for everyone. Failure number 2. I know, I feel like Oprah. The hook isn't clear or strong enough. And I love this because this is another one of those, we're probably going to say that many times during this episode, where you get too close to your own work and it's really hard to be objective about what the vast reader market for your genre is looking for, because you are so focused on your book, which is fair. You are the author. That is quite literally your superpower. But working with a team can help you be a lot more objective about what the broader genre fan or topic fans are looking for, because it's not just one person, right? So even though there are formulas and things like that, there are still, you still want to account for what they're looking for in a really fun, exciting, engaging way. And one of the biggest problems I see is that a book description feels more like a summary and not like a promise, and not like, I like to think of them as written versions of like a movie trailer, Penny, even sometimes. It shouldn't be a description. It shouldn't be a summary, because a lot of times the summary doesn't actually make sense to anybody out of context. I see that a lot too, where an author writes their own book description and there's so much in it that you really don't get until you get it, right? And it doesn't make a great first impression. There's too many details that aren't necessary for the description because it doesn't make sense yet, but it doesn't lean enough into what genre fans or topic enthusiasts are really looking for. You're not hitting those notes. You know what I mean? So it really is like, it's a really delicate dance of finding, like hitting all those key points. And readers don't really understand what makes the book special until they get involved in it. So again, this is one of those things where you really have to draw them in and make them a promise that they are not wasting their time. Because we haven't talked about this in a while. Books are not super expensive for the most part. Granted, every once in a while we talk about how a book is wildly overpriced for what it is. But for the most part, books are not major investments, but you are quite literally asking somebody to spend hours of their life. And very few of us have spare hours. You know what I mean? We have to be very intentional about what books we read, because you're committing a lot of time to this.
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to keep in mind. I think it's easy to forget, like, what, my book's, $5, $6, or the paperback's $15. Most people can afford that. What's the big deal? It's not that. It's the amount of time you're asking them to spend with you and to invest in what you're promising them, right?
Yeah.
So it's huge. So the hook isn't the plot. I love this. The hook is the reason the reader cares. The stakes, the emotional payoff, the transformation. Many authors bury their hook in the middle of the description. They kind of they want to build up to this big, wow, aha moment, and forget that a reader may never get there. That's not part of the first impression if you bury it halfway down in your description.
That's so smart. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where it's like, nope, you got to. And again, we talked about scannability, in our last episode, being able to scan and that is a very delicate dance of writing a book description where if you think you may get a second, maybe 2, if you're lucky, that somebody spends on your book page before they decide to move on. So you really have to zero in on what they're going to pick up if they're scanning. And that is huge. And that is where you want your hook to be.
Yeah, exactly. And the truth is that if a reader can't explain your book in one sentence or can't absorb your book in one sentence, they won't buy it. They won't recommend it.
Yes.
So, and this goes back to, again, not to refer back to the episode that we did on January 2nd, but we talked a lot about this too, is that you have to make it as easy as possible. You have to make it as easy as possible. And you have to almost, to some extent, longer book descriptions, look, I know a lot of people have really long book descriptions on Amazon. Longer book descriptions don't necessarily mean better, right? So I'm not telling you like, hey, Penny told me to write a 3,000 word book description. That's not what I'm telling you right now. But you do have to, I would rather see you have a 50-word book description and have and a hook that is just absolutely amazing, and a description that is spot on, rather than something that's a long and winding. I don't even know if you can put 3,000 words on Amazon. I don't think so. But I would rather have you see something that's long and meandering and unfocused, because readers are not going to spend the time figuring it out,
100%.
at the end of the day. Okay, failure number 3. Cover doesn't match the genre. This is the big one. I don't know if I have to go into this like too much, because I know we've done a bunch of shows on this, but covers are processed. So our mind is an image processor, not a word processor, which I know is awful since we're talking about books, but covers are processed within milliseconds, right? Readers will decide for me or not for me. And this is part of the reason why we talk a lot about, you have to have a genre match with your cover. So you can, if you are a big best-selling, nationally recognized household name author, then maybe if you want to put like a daisy on the cover of your next thriller mystery book, right?
Right.
You could probably do that, and maybe you'll be okay, but I still kind of doubt it. I mean, there has to be a genre match, and there's a difference between, a beautiful cover, and actually a beautiful cover is kind of more dangerous even than a mediocre one, because if you have a cover and everybody's like, oh my God, your cover's so beautiful, your cover's so beautiful, but yet it's wrong for the genre, that's a huge problem. Whereas like with a mediocre cover, like if your cover is just kind of like, that's easy enough to spot, right? But a really beautiful cover is, it's a little deceptive, is I guess however inarticulately I am trying to say. But trust the signals on if readers are not sure what your book is about, and we say this a lot, but take a look at I love going into bookstores. Not all of us have the time, or maybe have a bookstore close enough to where we live. Take a look at the virtual shelf space on Amazon. See how your book shelves next to those books, right? The cover has got to match the genre, the feel of the genre, the look of the genre. If you have if you have a dark, twisty mystery book, thriller, then, you probably shouldn't be putting a puppy on your cover. I'm just saying. Not that we've ever seen that, but I'm just hypothetical.
Right. No, it's very true. This is one area, and it's always tricky to tell authors this, just because they're probably like, what? But book covers are one area where, again, it sounds weird, you don't want to stand out too much, because it's one area where you want to fit in to some degree. You still want a great cover, and that doesn't mean it can't be amazing, but you don't want to stand out so much that it looks like you don't belong there, right?
Yeah, thank you.
And I feel like a lot of authors, they get really jazzed up about their cover because they're like, it's unlike anything anybody's ever seen. It's so unique. It's so this, it's so that. And it's like, that can all be true, but it can also be true that means that genre fans or topic enthusiasts are not going to register that is what they're looking for.
Right, exactly. And, look, I understand that we're all very proud of our covers. Like, I get it. I am an author. When I get my covers done, I should say, I'm like, show it to everybody. I'm super excited. But your cover really isn't there to impress other authors or your family members or whatever. Your cover should be reassuring the reader that this is the book that they want. At the end of the day, that's really all that a cover should do. Sell your book by reassuring the reader that they're in the right place.
Yes, I love that.
Full stop. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Failure number 4.
Failure number 4. I say this and I will stick to it. I won't harp on it for too long, but the book description isn't doing this job. We've done so many book description, both dedicated shows, but then, within different shows, we've talked about book descriptions. If you're new here, there's tons of content for you to go through. If you're not new here, you know how we feel. But this really oftentimes comes down to writing for yourself, not for who your reader is, right, Penny? It's about being too close to your own work to be objective about what everybody else is looking for versus what you want to say. Those can be two very different things, right?
Yeah.
And a really good book description finds that balance between what the author wants to say or what the story does or what it's about, and then what readers are looking for. Again, very good positioning, very good marketing and branding is about connecting the dots to make all of that feel very seamless. It makes it feel very natural.
Yeah.
So again, do not summarize your book. That's not exciting or fun, even for nonfiction. Don't summarize your book. You want to answer problems. You want to speak to needs, right? You want to make a promise that you will make somebody's life better. And then for fiction, you just want to let them know that this is exactly the kind of book that they're looking for if they're a fan of this genre. It's so much more interesting than a basic summary or the weird intro. Oh, you can always tell when somebody just like copies and pastes, something directly from their book. It's like, what is this? Like that sad, I hate seeing the sad little like 2-sentence paragraph as somebody's book description, Penny.
Yeah, I know.
When you run into that and you go to, okay, I'm going to check out the book on the retail page, and you get there, it's like, wow, it's 2 whole sentences and I don't have any idea what this book is about. And then the author wonders why they're not converting anybody,
Right, right. Right, exactly. And, the book description is really, that's the conversation that you have that happens when you're not in the room. Right.
Yes, exactly. That's a very good point. I love that.
Yeah. So that's the thing that I think is really, really, do you really like what your book description is saying when you're not in the room? And if the answer is no, then it's time to get it's time to get in there.
That's so funny. Yeah, if your book description is that awkward uncle when you're not around, it's like, ooh, yikes.
Right. Right. Exactly. Okay. And the fifth failure, you're attracting the wrong readers, right? So a lot of times the wrong readers show up in poor reviews, right? So we talked about this earlier in positioning yourself to the wrong market. Poor reviews a lot of times are framed as a quality issue when really they're a targeting issue, right? And we've said this before, and I can't remember now if we said it earlier in the show, or if it was in last week's show, because I know we've talked about amplifying signals, but good marketing amplifies signals. And if you are you amplifying the right signals, right? Are you amplifying the message that you really want to bring people to, because you're potentially bringing in the wrong people.
Right? Like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing a bait and switch and they show up, they think it's one thing, they end up getting something else. It's not going to be pretty in your reviews.
Well, and that's the thing though, too, is that sometimes we have authors who come to us and they're in this quandary, right? They're sitting in this, they're like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not doing all the right things. And they think that the solution to that problem is that they need more traffic. They need more traffic. If I can just get more traffic, I'll be able to sell more books. What you need is focused traffic that already wants what you wrote.
Yes.
Right. So it's not necessarily, so there's a great line in a movie where she said, and I think it was in the redo of the Sabrina movie, where she said, more is not better. Sometimes it's just more. Yes. And that very much holds true here too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. The wrong readers. I think a lot of times this comes from, like we talked about in the last episode, kind of sporadically showing up and trying to do all the things to check it off your list. And so you focus on just sending traffic, but it's not targeted traffic. So the numbers sound good. The effort seems fine, like all that stuff. You're like, no, I'm doing all the things, but it's like, really, are you actually reaching the people that your book is for? Or are you just reaching people?
Right. Right. Exactly.
If you're just reaching people and sending them to your book page, you're going to be spending a lot of time, money, and effort on generating traffic that is never going to convert for you. And then that gets you down a weird rabbit hole of trying to figure out why everything's not working, right? Because we've had authors like that too, where you really have to dig into what are you doing? How are you doing it? And then there's that light bulb moment where it goes, oh, well, it's been very unfocused. They've been very busy, but it's been very unfocused.
Right. And if this feels like you go and you didn't listen to the January 2nd episode, definitely go back and listen to that one, because we talk a lot about noise versus signals a lot in that episode, which really, which really feels like it fits in within the context of this show, with this show too.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I guess, Amy, did you have anything else to add to this one, or are we?
No, well, let's do, like, I'm going to run through real quick what to fix, like, just so anybody.
Let's go through the fixes, because I think that's really smart. And I think that everybody's kind of ready for that.
Yeah. So priority order for most authors listening, figure out your genre and category alignment. Are those right? Like, that's your number one. Okay.
Right.
Double check your cover. Be realistic, because I realize this is not necessarily a fun project to have to take on, to start fresh with your cover, but it is, I think, honestly, out of everything here, could be one of the biggest change makers. So make sure your cover's right. Your hook, is it good? Sorry, that sounds very basic, but truly, I mean, you can't call it a hook if you're not actually going to entice people,
Yeah.
So what is your hook? What is your promise? What is your, oh my gosh, I have to read more? This is also, like Penny said, how would somebody recommend your book to a friend? If they couldn't really say it succinctly, then there's a problem, right?
Right.
Your description. Almost everybody listening, I guarantee, could benefit from finessing your description. And that is not a slam. That is just a reality that your book is always evolving. If you are trying to sell more books and trying to build your author brand, you have to embrace the evolution of what publishing is. And so your description needs to be revisited at regular intervals, you know? And then your keywords, your alignment with your market, just make sure that you are reaching the right people. And again, more is just more sometimes, like Penny said. You're much better to be targeted and to know that you are reaching the right people, quality over quantity.
Right.
And then do you want to tell them about the cool test that we're going to put in the show description?
Yeah. So we talked about this in the green room, and we thought that it was going to be a little bit, so there's an alignment test, which I think it was a little bit too visual to try and talk about it on the podcast. So we thought it would be better to put it in the show notes. So there's an alignment test in there, definitely. And it's really, really cool. It's like this little quiz. So definitely go into the show notes and take a look at that, because we're going to put that in the show notes. But I think that, when your positioning is right, everything starts to feel easier, right? The marketing, it doesn't feel, marketing is already challenging. Like, I get it, but marketing feels lighter. It feels easier. Reviews sound clearer, and readers help you to sell your book, which 95% of books are sold through word of mouth, which means that readers talking about your book is a great way to sell a book, right? Mm-hmm. But when it's wrong, everything feels like an uphill battle.
Right.
So that's the reason that we felt like this show was important to do, for the second show of the year, just because, man, if you're not getting your positioning right, if you're not, if you're presenting your book to the wrong readers, full stop, your book isn't going to be selling.
Right. And make sure it's ready to convert once they get there.
Yeah.
It's a very simple 2-step process. There's things involved under each of those steps, but when you break it down, like Penny said, this is actually very manageable. And I love that we're kicking off the year with things that are within your control as an author. That's the best news you can get.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best news that you can get. And we hope that you hope that you continue to listen as we are in our 6th year. I cannot believe it. We have a whole series of shows. We have a whole new format. If you didn't get a chance to check out our December 26th episode, for sure, give that a listen, because that kind of walks you through what our plans are for our 6th season of the show. Text the word podcast to 888-402-8940. We love to hear from you. And please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.